Here on The Colour of Country Life, great to be catching up with the Minister for Climate, Environment and Water in South Australia, the Deputy Premier, Dr. Susan Close. How are you today, Susan?
Hey, I'm great. Thank you. Good to talk to you.
Yeah, good to catch up with you off the back of this interim report from the Murray-Darling Basin Authority, which, if there were 3 vehicles in the Murray-Darling Basin, the New South Wales one, you'd be taking it in for a service. The dials are looking pretty poor in terms of their progress on the plan.
That's a great way of putting it. So this report card, they do a report card every 6 months or so, and some of the dials, they look at each element of the plan and how it's going, and some of the dials are right up there in the green, and then you have a look at others and they are really deep in the red. And unfortunately for South Australia, tragically for the sustainability of the whole basin, the indicators that are about the extra water that we agreed on that said, getting this water will make the basin sustainable, those indicators are right in the red, which means that they're at very high risk of not being achieved. So specifically, I'm talking about just over 1,000 gigalitres that is in the plan that South Australia has long said we are very concerned this isn't being delivered, and this report card backs that in. It's not being delivered, including the 450 gigalitres we fought so hard for.
Now, the 450 gigalitres, there was an announcement, I think, made in the electorate of Boothby before the federal election. You've got a Prime Minister on side in Anthony Albanese in delivering that 450, but it looks like only 2 has been delivered so far and 22 to come. Like you say, we're a long way short with only, 18 months left until the 2024 deadline.
Look, I really feel sorry for Tanya Plibersek coming in as the new minister. She's inherited nearly 10 years of complete inaction from the previous federal government. In fact, worse than inaction, they put in policies that positively prevented this water from coming. So the 450 gigalitres is supposed to come through efficiency projects. Federal government pays an irrigator to have more efficient use of their water, so putting in some infrastructure to do that, and some of the water that's not being used gets handed over to the environment water holder. And like you say, 2 gigalitres has happened and 22 are projects that have been approved. That is so far from 450 gigalitres. So Tanya has got a massive job. But that doesn't mean I'm just going to sit back and go, oh, poor Tanya, let's not worry about the 450. Not only do we in South Australia need that 450 to be delivered, but the whole basin needs it. This is about the future of the basin. We are in a drying climate. We have droughts. We know we have droughts. It's been wet. It's going to get dry. And when it gets dry, without the proper allocation to the environment, we are in a world of pain.
Now, with this 450 gigalitres around the time of the federal election in May, when those commitments were made, amongst others, the Victorian Farmers Federation said that the 450 gigalitres was a deal between the federal government and South Australia to get South Australia to the table, and it wasn't really a deal with Victoria or New South Wales. Is that the underlying problem here, is that New South Wales and Victoria genuinely don't believe in the 450 gigalitres being delivered?
Yeah, so what the Farmers Federation said is not true in the sense that it's in the plan and everyone signed up to the plan. But what you're 100% right about is New South Wales and Victoria, even though they signed the plan, have always said that they will not be delivering that 450 gigalitres. And you may recall there was an attempt by them over a few years to get really complicated criteria so that any project that a farmer had, that an irrigator that wanted to get approved for this efficiency measure, that any project before it could be considered would have to pass all of these really complicated criteria. And unfortunately, under the last government in South Australia, under David Spears, he signed off on those criteria,
and those
making it even harder to get. I've written to everyone and said, South Australia no longer supports those criteria. We are out.
Yeah, but those criteria are social, economic and environmental, sort of the triple bottom line as they refer to it. But there may be more technicality to it than that. But the reality is that if those efficiency measures aren't delivered, they'll be facing buybacks in those states.
Well, exactly. So this is where we've had to move the conversation, is to say if you aren't going to do this through the federal government investing in efficiency in irrigators' properties, and there are irrigators who want to do this, by the way. There are projects that irrigators want to do, but the state governments are not passing them through, are not supporting them. They're using the criteria to help hold them back. And the previous federal government decided we won't do any on-farm efficiency projects, none. which is just crazy. So where we are is absolutely, as you say, we need to start talking about voluntary buybacks. If they're not going to do it through efficiency, then we need to be able to get on the water market. And here's something to really think about. People sell water all the time. There's constant trading of water through the Murray-Darling Basin. The only entity which is not able to buy 450 gigalitres is the Commonwealth Environmental Water Holder, because Barnaby Joyce put a cap into the plan, and there's only a couple of hundred gigalitres left in that cap.
Now,
my view is we need to remove that.
Now,
we need to remove that cap and we need to start buying.
The last question is, we've seen over the last few years National Cabinet used or, ministerial meetings like we've seen on biosecurity, for instance, with foot and mouth disease to get some progress on an important issue. Is this something we need to be having another resumption of water ministers' meetings to get some progress?
Absolutely, and what I've done is written to all of the ministers, telling them that we're withdrawing from those complex criteria, saying that we still need the 450, but also saying let's get around the table and let's meet. So I've had a conversation with Tanya Plibersek about that. She's keen to set up a meeting. She wants it to be a productive one, so she's working her way through how we can have a meeting that might actually deliver some good outcomes. And, I've got to say good luck with New South Wales and Victoria right now, because since, the last week they've been saying, no, we're not doing the 450 again. But that's what we need to do. We need to get around the table. I need to be really strong in advocating for South Australia, in holding the line that the whole basin needs this water, and let's see what happens when we're actually staring at each other around a table.
All right, we'll keep an eye on that. Thank you, Deputy Premier for South Australia, Susan Close, for joining us today on Flow.
Thank you.